Let me try to share now. I had an issue earlier.
Yep.
Is it better to share on PowerPoint or PDF from your experience?
PowerPoint is better. PowerPoint is better because you
Will
can
do.
control it.
Okay, I just shared my screen.
Yeah. Yeah, we can put in
Okay,
a
excellent.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Please.
Thank you once again for this opportunity to go over some of the insights that maybe we can discuss about operational excellence. So in the presentation today, I will simply try to guide companies and individuals, professionals in the journey of the process of operational excellence. What are some of the useful, I would say, key pillars that are necessary in order to achieve operational excellence? What are some of the key areas within supply chain operations that might be suitable? And then the tricky part comes into how can we achieve? What are some of those levers or key pillars that if they are actually within a company, hopefully they will achieve operational excellence. And then finally, we'll conclude with some exciting application of AI, artificial intelligence, how it can help supply chain companies, especially with the challenging complex of supply chain. Now, operational excellence, it's not, if everyone is actually interested in talking about supply excellence, but what is it? What does it mean simply? Simply, whenever we talk about in the operation of supply chain and logistics, and we try a company that tries to achieve, operation excellence, simply, they need to consistently, and this is the key, consistently deliver products, goods, or services cost effectively with a focus on eliminating waste and value activities and improving operational efficiency, while keeping in mind that they need to maximize the quality of the service and enhance the customer satisfaction. So there are certain, I would say, premises that needs to be achieved. Always people, they focus on let's reduce cost, let's make the customers happy. However, there are several things that needs to be taken into account. As I mentioned, making sure that there's a consistency in delivering all those operations. You cannot achieve operation excellence if you don't eliminate or reduce the non-value adding activities. So it is not something that simply one function within supply chain that can work on. It is a complete strategic mindset that the whole supply chain department, function, business line, the whole company, they have to integrate, they have to focus on along with the broader business goals. So it reflects on the overall business strategy of the company. It touches back on that. So if there is no proper, I would say, baseline, depending on the strategy itself, then it's not an easy, I would say, endeavor or initiative to achieve. So just make sure that whenever we talk about operational excellence, that we're not only focusing on cost. There's several, I would say, pillars that we need to focus on. And this is, will take us back to the following slide. As I mentioned, it starts with if a company is interested in ensuring and enhancing their operation to be a market leader, they have to start with a clear and I would say a comprehensive understanding of all the best practices in the market. Who are the market leaders? How they are doing their business. So it's not a single measure or initiative that is done to only improve one function. It requires several pillars, several, I would say, levers that needs to be achieved. So first, we need to align the supply chain strategy with the customer need. Very often, logistics and supply chain companies, they focus on the operational aspect, how they improve their operation, but they ignore the customer. And even sometimes in many companies, supply chain companies, maybe they don't deal directly with the end customers, but all of the services we offer, all the products we deliver, they will be consumed by the customers. Part of operational excellence, you need to make sure that your operation, your processes, your workflows are optimized, meaning you have to have end-to-end streamlined processes. And the key part here is how can we reduce the non-value added activities, because this will result in waste of resources. This will result in ineffective operation. And then what everyone actually focuses on, how can we reduce the cost? Cost reduction is a very important aspect in supply chain excellence. How can we do it? By eliminating and reducing non-value adding activities, by improving the way that we perform those operations, by making our staff actually perform really well. Making sure that we manage our operation effectively, whether it is retrieving or taking a product from the inventory, delivering a product, following up with a supplier. So we have to have an effective, I would say, time management of all our operation. Quality is a very important component of a highly effective supply chain. So you need to make sure that you always maintain a high standard, and this can be achieved by, once again, taking into account how can we have a highly performing staff. As Asma mentioned in the previous Excel presentation, continuous process and quality is a very important task that we need to always ensure that we integrate a culture of quality in our company. Right now, with the new advancement in technologies, technology integration are quite important. We need to take advantage of AIs, IoTs, blockchain. Uh, some years ago, they were very costly, but right now, I would say they can be, I'm not going to say easily, but they can be effectively integrated if planned and done properly. Without real-time visibility across your supply chain, you cannot achieve operational excellence in your supply chain. So this is a very important pillar. Unfortunately, several supply chain companies, they focus on improving their operation, but they don't value the merits of having end-to-end visibility. Finally, with the challenges that we face every day in supply chain, risk mitigation, contingency planning is quite important. As they say, change is the only constant in supply chain and logistics. So what works today may not work tomorrow. For example, if everything is working fine today, may not work tomorrow. 3-4 years ago, we had a global problem that affected supply chain. Today we're having issues with maritime shipping transport across the Red Sea. So almost every week, every month, we're having a risk issue. So it's quite important that we take into account this particular issue as well. Now, should we focus on all the different functions and operations in supply chain? Not necessarily. I would say you focus on the most important, I would say, operation within your supply chain, depending, once again, on your industry, on your overall business strategy, and the environment that you work on. I would say starting some of the key areas that are maybe suitable to start a supply chain operation excellence project on, I would say start with your procurement. How you procure the raw material from your supplier, because can end up in actually helping your company avoid unnecessary, I would say, complication down the road, down the stream with your customer, with your operation. So if you do it properly by ensuring that you have effective supplier relationship management, you have diversified relationship with the suppliers, especially right now with the changes happening. Long time ago, I mean, let's say 5 years ago, everyone was actually about outsourcing. Let's outsource all our operation to certain countries because they used to be cheaper. Right now, it's, post-COVID, it's completely the opposite. Many countries are actually, and companies are considering nearshoring or rearshoring, simply bringing back factories and operation back to the country or surrounding countries. So before, maybe used to work with suppliers who are 3 or 4 time zones apart from you, or maybe thousands of kilometers away. Right now, maybe your supplier is, let's say, maybe 10-hour drive from you in a neighboring country. It's a completely different mind. Your lead time will completely change. I would say the stages that the product goes through will completely change. So you need to make sure that you're aware of the changes that are happening if you want to be a market leader. Inventory is a very important asset. If you don't effectively manage it in all your logistics facilities, unfortunately, it can either make or break your company. So if you don't, implement automated, real-time, highly effective inventory management across your logistics facilities, you will actually have really problems. You'll have operational problems, increase in cost, you'll have stockouts, you'll have a lot of customers issues. So, it's very quite important that you need to pay attention. And unfortunately, very often, many supply chain companies, they focus on how can you improve procuring those raw material and storing the finished goods, how can we deliver them effectively to our customers, but they ignore those assets, those inventory products that they keep in their facilities. Demand forecasting is a very critical component. If you don't properly and effectively, run, I would say, as accurate as possible forecast and demand of the market, sales and the market requirement, you would end up with a lot of excess inventory that companies are right now actually suffering from. There are a lot of companies, because of what happened during COVID, they ended up having a lot of excess inventories. And right now, almost I would say all the demand and the forecast will be a little bit, maybe skewed because the last 4 years are anomalies. They're not the same. So do we go back to our forecast that we did 5 years ago, or do we keep the ones that we did, let's say 3 years ago? They're completely different because customers 5 years ago are completely different from the customers that we have right now. Customers' requirement 2 or 3 years ago during lockdowns are completely different from what we have right now. The last, I would say, area, and it's a very critical area that represent a big, I would say, cost component, is how can you improve the efficiency of your transportation activities? Whether it is about, the bulk transport of your raw material from the port to your facilities, or even the last mile part of delivering the product to your customers. So you need to work on optimizing your routes, your delivery schedules. How can you ensure that your vehicles are highly operated? So all those areas are actually good, I would say, focus areas to focus on, and collectively they can enable your company to be a market leader. Now, touching back on the points that I mentioned earlier, it's easier, I would say, being and talking about achieving those than actually doing them. Because there are touching back on what Asim said in the previous presentation, there's several tasks, there's several, I would say, functions that needs to be effectively done and achieved in order to be a market leader and be actually highly efficient in your supply chain. We need to have all of those clicking and working properly in order to make sure that we achieve operational excellence in our company. So let's go and delve in them one by one. How can a company, I would say, bring up their operation to a certain level that they're not only competing, they're a market leader? Because at the end of the day, operational excellence is simply making sure that your company is usually in the top 2%. I'm not only competing with company X or company Y. No, I want to be the benchmark. So by being in the top 2% of the market leader, this is how you can ensure that you're ahead of all your competitors. Now, you cannot achieve, I would say, operational excellence without executive leadership support. So it's not about only improving and tackling operational processes. No, it starts by having an overall supportive organizational culture. Your leadership have to believe in it. Because without their, I would say, their support, there will be no budget, there will be no support, there will not be any projects or improvements. Employees are a critical part. Very, very often, the change, management component is very overlooked. So we look at improving our processes, but we ignore the people that actually perform those tasks. We need to value stream map all the operations. We need to document them, where we are doing great, where we are lacking, where are the bottlenecks, where are the areas of inefficiencies. So we need to simply have a baseline. We need to have a full understanding of our operation in order to improve them. And the successful companies, they don't have complex operation. They have effective, streamlined operation. So whenever you simplify your workflows, you have standard operating procedures for your staff. The question always, like whenever, for example, I see operation in effective companies like Amazon, simply you get the feeling that the staff in those companies are like almost like robots, because they're very effective to the point that where they no longer make mistakes. By simplifying the workflows, by eliminating the redundant steps, we can have streamlined processes. Touching back on the previous point, our workforce, our operational staff are simply the catalyst that will ensure that our operations are efficient. So we need to upskill them. We need to provide training. Don't just expect because someone has been doing an operation for 10 years that they are qualified straight away to simply flick the switch and immediately move to automated operation. So you need to make sure that you provide them with the necessary tools, the necessary training to enhance their productivity. Because if they don't have the mindset of problem solving, if they don't value, for example, productivity, unfortunately, they will not be an enabler. They will be an obstacle. Now, another, I would say, enabler is automation. Right now, automation is a very important, I would say, change that companies need to consider. Whether it is automated warehouse operation, robots, or even, for example, having automated workflows and AI, which we will touch on later, it enable automation. Of course, maybe 10 years ago, automation was very expensive. Right now, if you have enough economies of scale, actually it might be justified. I would say another part that you need to consider is that optimizing your facilities and your operation. You need to start by your warehouse. If you don't have an optimal warehouse design, simply you're giving your staff a facility, a building, or infrastructure that does not actually enable them to have a highly effective, highly productive operation, because they will run into, for example, forklifts. The design is restricting, high picking or high accuracy. So you need to look at your warehouse. Is it effectively designed or not? Then we have to look at the layout, the racking system, the material equipment, the product requirements. So we need to consider all those different aspects. Just because your warehouse has been effective for the last 10 years, customers today, suppliers today are different. So we need to look at that design. The way that we manage our fleet. 20 years ago, trucks were actually all right. You can easily drive a truck, your supplier, or you can drive a truck to your customers. Right now, a lot of cities are actually having truck bans, or the cost of diesel are very expensive. So trucks are no longer maybe a good option for you. So maybe you need to look for other means like delivery vans, crowd shipping, for example. You need to implement vehicle tracking systems. How can we monitor the performance of our vehicles, our driver behaviors, the maintenance needs? All of those can improve your operation and can actually help you achieve cost reduction. You need to have a proper and robust maintenance schedule, because sometimes I run across companies that they run into a lot of breakdown in their vehicles, and they take it as it's part of their daily operation, that they say that breakdowns are part of the operation. No, it's not. If you are an effective logistics or supply chain company, you shouldn't run into those problems. Touching back on the importance of inventory, we need to make sure, especially nowadays in the day of omni-channel fulfillment, customers right now, they need products online, in the store. delivered to their office, picked up from a store that is near, for example, their gym. We need to strike the balance between the carrying cost, the product availability, and the ordering cost of the inventory. How can we apply effective demand forecast to avoid stockouts and at the same time overstocking? A very, I would say, costly part of your supply chain logistics operation is your delivery. So you need to apply route optimization using dynamic real time to avoid a lot of traffic congestion, accidents, weather delays. So how can, and actually, I've been involved in several projects that some optimization software ended up actually improving the cost or reducing the delivery cost by 50%. And people always ask, like, how much is, for example, the component of last mile across the whole supply chain? Sometimes, especially for example, in online purchasing or online commerce, last mile sometimes can represent up to 50% of the supply chain cost because it is highly inefficient. So imagine when you can optimize those routes with the increasing cost of energy, whether it is in your warehouse, electricity, or, for example, fuel, you need to improve your energy consumption, the efficiency of your operation, in order to simply, I would say, improve the productivity of your assets, of your vehicles, of your equipment, because you cannot reduce the number of those equipment or those vehicles. So you still have to use them. However, we can improve the way that we are using them. I would say an area that is very often overlooked, you need to ensure compliance. Because if I am a client that you are providing supply chain services to me, whether you're, for example, providing me with products or we work in a certain industry, I cannot, as a client, I cannot accept that you sometimes run into compliance issue at the port, or, for example, your truck are having certain issues, or your drivers are not actually having the proper documentation. So you need to make sure that you are 100% regulation and compliant with the regulation in your country, in your environment, in your industry. I mean, right now, part of making sure that we achieve compliance is, I would say, also assuring, for example, maybe complying with ethical standards, ethical procurement, and for example, green practices. Right now, many companies, they don't sell products only in their country. Sometimes you might have a supply chain company that they sell product in a country that is maybe continents away. So, for example, what customers maybe don't pay attention to in your own industry or market might be a very critical requirement in another market. So you need to make sure that you are 100% compliant with all the regulations in your industry and the other industries that you are serving. A very, I would say, important aspects and functions that you need to focus on and pay attention is measuring your performance in a way that it enables staying always ahead and being actually being the market leader. So we need to have a complete, I would say, performance measurement component that have a quite diverse KPIs that focus on the most important one. And very often companies, they have very, I would say, big number of KPIs. So it's rather focusing on the word key, that means important performance indicators. They actually implement a very diverse portfolio of performance metrics. So they become an obstacle because they end up creating silos between your functions, where each function is competing with the other one. So your procurement team, they want to reduce the frequency of purchase of the raw material, while the demand and inventory team, they want to keep enough level of safety stock, because having those conflicting sometimes performance metrics, they don't coexist. So this is why we need to make sure that it is a collective team effort. It is not done. Very often the mistake happens that the procurement team, they set their own KPI, the inventory team set their own KPI, the delivery team set their own KPI. They don't talk to each other. They don't have, for example, whether it is an SOIP like sales and operating and inventory, uh, plan meetings or monthly meetings or whatever the case. But you need to make sure that you discuss all those different KPIs, how they complement each other, how they help each other. And finally, you need to have a continuous improvement culture. Just because you are the best today doesn't mean you will stay the best. Because other companies, other competitors, they will learn from you. Simply they will try to sometimes copy you, so they will keep up. So this is having the cross-functional teams across your supply chain will help you avoid all those problems. So touching back, just to go back to those, I would say functions, we need to collectively ensure that we have them integrated, enabled within our operation. By only achieving 3 or 4, we will have a good supply chain, but will not have a highly effective one. And unfortunately, sometimes the mindset of logistics company or supply chain company that they maybe focus only on operation or automation, but they ignore the people and the continuous improvement culture. So it is quite important that we consider them all together. Now, let's jump to, I would say, the interesting part of how can AI enable achieving some of those excellent operations that we discussed. Now, I would say the value and the merit of AI that simply it transforms our diverse real-time data from data that only we inform us about what happening right now. It actually makes it transforms those data into actionable insights. So it makes us better informed. So we're not only aware of, for example, what is happening right now, we can actually predict what things will happen down the road. It enhances precision, accuracy in our operation. So it makes us not only, for example, smarter, but it makes us more efficient. It helps our decision becomes more, I would say, better informed and avoid unnecessary hiccups or challenges later. So simply imagine AI, if done and used properly. And in the presentation today, I will not discuss the actual technical uses of AI, but how we can use it in supply chain from an operational perspective. So AI simply, it almost, I would say, turbocharge your capabilities where you can improve significantly the efficiency and productivity of your operation. And right now, with the increasing cost of a lot of those technologies, right now you can actually implement AI, and several companies are actually right now using AI in their operation. But let's share some of the ways that AI can improve our operation in supply chain. Now, long time ago, supply chain company used to have a wealth of data, whether it is sales data, historical data, consumer behaviors, all of those data. But because it was very costly and complex to analyze all those data together, quite frankly, they were kept in within companies and analyzed, very, I would say, minimum. However, right now, with the value and the merit of AI, you simply can implement AI as solutions to analyze all of those different diverse and real-time data collectively. Looking at, for example, social media sentiment, looking at the market, for example, trends, looking at the external factors, in order to not only predict the demand, but actually improve our demand to a very high accuracy. This, touching back on all the previous issues that I mentioned, will make us better informed so we can know exactly how much product we should keep. Right now, you might have come across suppliers that are working in several markets. With the use of AI, you can simply evaluate the complex, I would say, performance of all those different suppliers, whether it is taking the delivery times of those suppliers, the product quality of those suppliers, the environmental impact, the lead time, All those, for example, I would say aspects that you need to consider in order to make sure that you can rank and evaluate all the suppliers. Once again, the question, how will this help me? It simply will allow you to have a very effective global supply chain network, and also would help you, uh, you know, uh, I would say select your supplier, the best suppliers in a way that takes into account all those different operational requirements and data, not only based on experience, not because we're humans, so sometimes we have limited capabilities. We cannot analyze all those different, huge, complex data. With the risks that supply chain companies right now encounter on a daily basis, by having all those, for example, events happening, global news, weather events, disasters, political developments, all of those problems are happening. AI can allow us to take all those insights together where we can evaluate and we can predict where problems might happen, where disruptions might happen. So simply it allows us to look into the future by analyzing, by looking at all those different problems and issues happening, where we can identify hotspots. So rather than run into those issues when they happen, we can avoid them. So it helps us simply into the contingency planning part. AI can be a game changer in the way that we manage our inventory. Touching back on the omni-channel aspect. Right now, imagine if you are a retailer, a supply chain company that is selling part of your retail is selling to customers in a physical store, in an online store, in a marketplace, on social media platforms. How can you maximize the allocation of the different inventory across your logistics facilities? Using AI-driven tools, you can take all those different demand patterns, customer requirements, logistics consideration, and then you can, based on real time, allocate your inventory, taking into account all those different requirements. The key, I would say, change here is that AI enable taking all those huge, complex data and taking into account the consumer behaviors. Because consumer, I mean, I've seen in one of the previous presentation, one of the presenter touched on a very excellent point on the consumer behaviors, the minds, the decision making of consumers right now. It's changing a lot. Customers, let's say 5 years ago, customers were quite happy if the product was delivered in one or 2 days. Right now, customers want the product done, delivered in 1 hour and sometimes in 20 minutes. So how can I, on a daily basis, change the allocation of my inventory? How much inventory do we keep? So stock level. If we keep too much, we'll end up with overstocking. If we keep less than, I would say, the necessary demand, we will end up with stockouts. So AI allow us to take all those different parameters together to simply check the demand and the forecast that we have to make sure that we maintain a stock level, because very often you would have an internal conflict between your demand team and your inventory management team, that the inventory manager does not want to comply with the forecast because they sometimes run with overstocking problems. So it becomes an inventory issue. AI can allow us to strike this balance. AI, based on real time, it can be adaptable. So it can change the reordering point on sometimes on a very, I would say maybe per minute. So having this real time, inventory data will allow us to change the stock level in our inventory, taking into account all the changes, especially when it comes to seasonality. So AI is a game changer when it comes to inventory. I would say a very useful actual practical application of AI. It's simply how we integrate, how we implement our delivery fleet with AI solutions. So by taking into account the previous delivery schedules, traffic congestions, and so on, we can simply use dynamic routing with AI integration that will take into account all those different factors and can simply allow us to achieve a highly optimized delivery route that is updated on, I would say, sometimes on the minute. So this will simply take into account traffic congestions, weather changes, even sometimes customer changes their mind rather than wanting the delivery to be done to their office. Right now, they want it to be done to a shopping center near them. The delivery window changes. Sometimes with the customer, we gave us 2 hour window. Right now, they change it to 1 hour. So AI will allow us to make changes on the go. Very often, sometimes companies encounter a lot of problems in loading the products in their truck or their van. How many products should we keep? Uh, Very often, people outside supply chain and logistics, whenever we talk about load utilization of trucks or vans, they expect that trucks are sometimes 80% fully loaded, while delivery vans are 60% fully loaded. This is not the case. For example, in last mile delivery industry, very often uh, delivery companies are actually forced to only maybe load up their trucks to up to 50%, sorry, vans up to 50%, because a delivery van sometimes is actually really good if they can deliver up to maybe 50 to 70 customers a day. So you cannot load all those maybe products together. However, if we combine AI that will enable us to optimize the delivery routes, so then we can optimize the load capacity. So we can increase the load utilization. By having online platforms, we can actually integrate like marketplaces. We can integrate AI with our product scheduling. So we can look at our available capacity in our delivery fleet, in our trucks, and we can match it with the delivery drivers, with the freight carriers. So simply, rather than, because in supply chain, an idle truck is a non-productive asset. So as long as your trucks are more on the road, that means more money for the drivers and more money for the customers. So AI can allow us to take advantage of this availability in our available capacity in our delivery fleet. AI can also allow us to look at, in the case of automation. So, for example, in warehouse automation, we can integrate AI with robots in order to improve, for example, the picking and the sorting and the packing, operation within a warehouse. This, especially in the case of e-commerce, the volume of products is increasing and the frequency of products is increasing, but the products are becoming smaller and smaller. So in the traditional sense, you need more staff. However, with AI-driven robots, with automated warehouse operation, you simply can do more with less. Very often, touching back on the point I mentioned earlier, when we look at the design of our warehouse, is it an enabler or is it an obstacle? How can we do it? By using AI and simulation together, we can simply simulate our operation and where our operations are going within the warehouse, and it can help us decide, do we need to redesign our warehouse, or it is effective enough right now, so we need to maintain it. Right now, with the concept of gamification, so by using, for example, game-based learning and simulation, you can increase the productivity of your staff. So, for example, you can allow them using augmented reality training. You can use them using gamification training to upskill them, to make sure that actually they do their operation quite better. One of the, I would say, the key values or applications of AI is the real-time monitoring and tracking aspect. That by integration of AI and tracking technologies such as IoTs, blockchain, or for example, smart sensors, it simply, everyone is talking about end-to-end visibility. If you ask 10 people end-to-end visibility about end-to-end visibility, the answer will be quite different. But the question is, do we really have end-to-end visibility in those companies? Not necessarily, because you need to have real-time, all the time integrated operation. Now, AI and those tracking technologies is the enabler, because it allows you to have a fully integrated supply chain, starting from your suppliers all the way to your customers. So actually, by combining and implementing AI with those technologies, we can know exactly, especially, for example, in the case of cold chain, you need to know in your container that is moving from country X to country Y, what is the temperature right now? What is the humidity, light exposure? So when it comes to, for example, cold chain and compliance, AI and those advanced technologies can be a game changer. Also, implementing AI or complementing AI with those tracking technologies can ensure what customers want, real-time tracking. Right now, I want products that I can trace and track anytime, anywhere. So by complementing AI with those tracking technologies, we can finally achieve this. Not only something that I can trace once an hour or every few hours. No, I want it per the minute. Now, all those technologies together will allow us to achieve this. By combining AI with image recognition and visual detection technologies, we can improve the quality control. We can actually automate the inspection systems, especially, for example, for port operation, when you have a lot of containers coming, when you have a lot of products in huge warehouses, you need a lot of manual operation and operational staff to simply perform those quality checks. However, by using those, when you add drones as well, when you combine all those technologies together, simply you can automate the inspection processes. So this is where you can avoid unnecessary problems later with defects with products with the customer. So it can help you, identify and detect even the smallest problems in your products. Finally, touching back on, AI can ensure how compliant are we with all the regulations. So, for example, AI can allow you to evaluate all the different regulations that are actually valuable. It can take into account the changes. It can predict what the government, for example, sometimes might change in terms of those regulations, how compliant we are based on the analysis of all those different, for example, operation. Compliance can be very costly sometimes, and companies may run into, like for example, yesterday I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he told me one of, for example, his colleague who's a customer broker, on a yearly basis, he's actually enabling his company to avoid sometimes fines and tariffs almost about $20 million. So imagine if you complement AI with the experience of this person, you can achieve a lot of reduction in terms of those issues with government regulations. The last point is, which is, I would say, the most important merit and value of AI, is taking into account all those different outcomes, all those different benefits that we touched, whether it is automated the warehouse operation or routing our delivery and effectively using our delivery fleet, is simply taking all those data insights and providing an in-depth, a very complex analysis, whether it is looking at, doing a prescriptive, for example, analysis, or a descriptive one, why things are happening, why our supplier is, in country X is performing way better than our supplier in country Y, why our trucks in this area are actually way underperforming another area. Because by automating this analysis part, simply you can actually not only be better informed, but you can take actions much quicker. Analysis is a costly, complex process. Prior to AI and advanced, analysis, analytical tools, you needed to have a full team. But right now you can automate this process. So simply by taking all those real-time and operational data sets, it makes you better informed. So you can, on the go, you can make those, for example, decisions. Another very important, I would say, use of AI is, we always hear companies that they want to implement a supply chain control tower. We want to have a very comprehensive dashboard. I want to know exactly how my trucks are doing, what is the status of my inventory. Now, AI will, I would say, elevate the performance of the supply chain control tower, because by having this interactive, I would say, dynamic dashboard. A while ago, I visited the company. They had a very nice dashboard, but I remember I asked, for example, the manager, how, for example, updated is this data, and he told me it's almost like every hour. I told him, you're I would say, storing pharmaceutical products. So the quality is very important here. So if a problem happens, you will know about it only after 1 hour. In your case, you need to have real time, on the minute monitoring. Now AI can actually overcome this problem. So AI is a game changer. If it is done properly, it literally can improve your operation in a way that is really turbocharging all your operation. Will not only you will be a market leader, you actually will be ahead of everyone. So in the dynamic, complex nature of supply chain operations right now, if we don't if a company wants to be a market leader, if they don't implement all the practical strategies that are discussed, they will run into problem. So you need to make sure to have a culture of continuous improvement. You need to implement this operational excellence in your company. So AI is a very, I would say, promising technology if done properly. And I'm pretty certain that with the, I would say, the decreasing cost of implementing AI, many small to medium companies down the road in the coming years can implement them. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned a thing or two about what I discussed today. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Uh, thank you, Dr. Khalid. It was really a great session. Okay, so you cover a very critical part of managing supply chain. Fantastic presentation. I just note some points. You made it very nicely. Okay, so you said in the beginning to remove non-value added costs. Okay, that was fantastic. Okay, so in running day-to-day operations, people forget to remove non-value added costs. So that is something which you reminded it very well. Okay, so there are many points you shared, and the AI, if you do it properly, okay, if you do it properly, it would be a game changer, and it can really help organizations to improve efficiency. At the same time, the people part, you covered the people part. Capable people in supply chain is the need of the hour. Okay, so without right people in the place, no matter what you do, so we may not deliver. Okay, that's fantastic. And of course, you said very nicely that the senior management need to pay attention to the supply chain. It is not only a back office thing, it's a real thing. Okay, so it's not only a sales and marketing. You need to have your supply chain in a robust manner so that they deliver you as a competitive advantage. Fantastic presentation, Dr. Khalid. Okay, so thank you. If you have any final thoughts, top 3 takeaways, if you would like to jot down from your mind, then please go ahead.
Thank you, Sheikh. I will actually conclude with an excellent point that you touched on. Very often, sometimes companies they I would say view the transition or improving their operation or going for AI that it is simply like a black and white or a button that you press. So with the operational manpower staff that you have right now, that immediately you can implement the technology and go for it. This is not the case. You need to make sure that your baseline enable it, because at the end of the day, those manpower are used to performing operation a certain way. So you need to upskill them. You need to train them. Another challenge that I would say companies need to consider, that it is, I would say, a collective, comprehensive endeavor. It is not a one-man time or one man, one function job. It is the finance team, the HR team, the IT team, supply chain operation, all those teams together, they have to be part of it. And it's spearheaded by the executive leadership. The last point I would say, you need to, I would say, seek technical expertise whenever you consider transitioning into AI. Very often, I would say the warehouse or the operational or the supply chain team, they only talk to the company that is, with all due respect, selling the AI itself. So they will only focus on the sales aspect. However, you need to seek external technical expertise because they are the ones they will actually guide and advise and direct this transition. Because you are too busy doing, while with all due respect, the technology provider is too busy selling. So you need to have someone that connect these two teams together. Thank you once again for the opportunity. I'm really
Interesting.
happy for this chance. Thank you.